Housing Ministry is calling an urgent meeting with a social housing provider after a group of tenants have raised serious concerns about safety at a South Auckland complex the provider manages. The New Zealand branch of the Australian not-for-profit Compass has received more than $3.3 million in government subsidies since 2016. But tenants living in a Compass-managed accommodation block in Papatoetoe say a string of alleged incidents there, including assaults, sexual harassment and alleged drug dealing, means that they don't feel safe in their homes anymore, and they want Compass to do better.
Had to get the police at 3 a.m. is out of control. He started abusing me. He was threatening me outside our room. He's getting his boys onto me. October 2017.
Think of this as a roll call of bad behaviour.
Shouting. I've called noise control. November 2017. We had to call police at 7 o'clock tonight. Had a house full all day drinking, little baby in the room. January 2018, knocked on my door, really upset. Visitors were drinking and smoking marijuana all night. February 2000.
A taster of the problems, Debbie says, have been plaguing the South Auckland social housing complex for more than 2 years.
Someone called the police.
She's made more than 50 complaints by her count via text, phone and emails to the managers. Compass Housing Services New Zealand, a not-for-profit community housing provider that's Australian-owned.
Assaulted her tonight. I had to call the police. He's been arrested. Bail conditions are that he is not allowed back on this property. January 2019, her in my block has her boyfriend back living with her. Be violent again. May 2018, there's a new guy assaulted his girlfriend, saying he was going to slit my throat.
Are you a whinger?
No, I just want a safe, secure place to live in.
Debbie's not alone. Checkpoint's spoken to a number of Compass tenants, including Lily.
It really upsets me. Sometimes I have to stay in my room and feel so tense.
The South Auckland complex they live in is modern and tidy looking. The units form a U-shape around a car park. It's compact, close-quarter living. A number of the residents have high or complex needs and haven't been able to find private rentals. There are 6 blocks, 9 one-bedroom, 1-bathroom units a block, and they share communal kitchens. So it's home to about 54 people. Len's one of them.
On a whole, there's some really lovely people there, but we have the odd one that causes trouble and continues to cause trouble. So I've been threatened to be killed, I've been threatened with a knife, been told that he'll climb through my window in the middle of the night when I'm asleep and slit my throat. I've had numerous police complaints about it.
We'll come back to that later, but first, Compass says the Papatoetoe complex complies with Building Act requirements for reasonable and adequate provision for disabled people. Len's an amputee who at times relies on a wheelchair.
Access is a major problem. On quite a regular basis I end up in my wheelchair because I get blisters on my stump and that. Accessing the main door is near impossible.
He gives us a demo.
Spring-loaded, it has a swipe card which you have to try and hold that, open the door handle and then wheel yourself through when the door's trying to close on you. There is a slight lip on that one.
Len says he asked a Compass New Zealand manager for a ramp to his unit sliding door instead, but was told no. Compass wouldn't give us an interview citing privacy issues, but in an email response it says it's never had an accessibility complaint.
Is that the one that threatened to kill you or get his mates onto you?
Yeah.
A group of Compass tenants chats over morning tea. On the table beside Debbie is a stack of her diaries, full of notes about disruptions at the complex, including alleged drug dealing.
The guy upstairs was a known drug dealer. He would put a stone or a chair into the outside security door of our block, so his cronies can come up and down at any time of the day or night. He was hammering on my door, abusing me, calling me all the names under the sun. I rang the police from there. He came back and he started abusing me in her doorway and told me he was going to get the boys onto me to deal with me.
The residents say after months of complaining, the man was eventually moved out last year. But in their view, Compass was and is slow to act. And the former tenant is still able to visit the address despite his alleged threatening behaviour. Compass points out it has no power or authority to investigate alleged criminal behaviour. That's a police matter. Debbie is worried about other problems with ongoing violence.
Directly across the hall from me, her boyfriend has lived there ever since she moved in, so that's 2 years, and he's not on the tenancy. This is the second time that he had attacked her, and she was screaming and asking for help. She came into the kitchen, and I was in the kitchen cooking my dinner, and she said, "Please call the police, he tried strangling me." So I did, I rang the police straight away.
The man was convicted earlier this year, but the tenants say he's been back to the property and actually stays there, even though guests are only supposed to stay up to 2 weeks. They say they've complained to Compass, but there's been very little action. They pay income-related rents that are topped up by the government through rent subsidies and an operating allowance, and the government's paid Compass about $3.3 million since 2016. Lily moved here from another Compass housing complex because she says she was being bothered by a male tenant there, but he moved too.
When I'm cooking something in the kitchen, he's standing behind me and I can hear he start talking like, "Oh, you look so sexy."
Is he close to you when he does that?
Very close to me. I'm working, I finish at night time most of the time. When I come home, like 1 o'clock, he can hear me open the door and then he's come out straight away in his room.
1 o'clock in the morning?
Yes. I close my door and then start knocking. And I say, "Leave me alone." I start talking really loud, and they say, "Oh, I just want to come and have sex," things like that. And I say, "Go away."
Lily says she's complained to Compass several times. They asked her to fill out some forms, but the man still lives at the property.
They don't do anything. They just swipe everything under the carpet.
Lily also reported the problem to police, and the man's been warned by them. Checkpoint has spoken to a resident at Compass's Mangere complex, where the man used to live. Now, she says she complained about his behaviour, and so did several other women. So Compass moved him to another complex, the one where Lily lives.
I feel so depressed every time I see him around. I feel really anxious all the time.
On one occasion, Len intervened.
He'd been brown-eyeing me through their kitchen window, which is directly across from my unit, dropping his pants. One of my neighbours from his unit come home and he'd abused her, and I'd gone over to tell him to leave her alone. She'd been distraught on numerous occasions because of his behaviour towards her. And he proceeded to stood on my prosthetic leg, pushed me over. I come out of my leg and come down hard on the corner of the stairs on my stomach. He shot into his room when he seen me hit the deck, and I proceeded to go back to my room and took some painkillers and ended up having to call an ambulance and ended up in hospital in intensive care for I think 3 or 4 days.
The residents have provided Checkpoint with copies of complaints they've made to police or Compass Housing New Zealand over the past 2 years. And while some of the problems have been solved, their point is it is an ongoing battle. Their list of complaints is long: excessive drinking and partying that breaches tenancy rules, the regular presence of gang members who aren't residents, and a string of young female guests that last year resulted in yet another police visit.
One of them offered me sex for a couple of smokes. I spoke to Peter about it, he said, "Oh, don't worry about them, they're fine." Then I had a police officer come and see me, asked if I knew what was going on. One of his comments was 2 of the girls they were looking for were runaways from Whangarei and had quite often been found in his presence.
The housing ministry that contracts Compass says every day community housing providers work with vulnerable people and they do an outstanding job. It says Compass doesn't provide wraparound services, but its contract with the ministry requires it to connect tenants to appropriate support services.
We have one particular mental health patient in our block. Up till recently, she was going wandering at 2 o'clock in the morning in her knickers.
The Housing Ministry says it's concerning to hear about the issues raised by tenants, and it will meet with Compass as a matter of urgency to understand what has occurred and what steps can be taken immediately to ensure that all tenants are safe and secure in their homes. And the Ministry says it's referred the tenants' concerns to the Community Housing Regulatory Authority that oversees providers. As for the tenants, a cup of tea and a chat isn't going to restore their faith in Compass.
I feel like they treat us like nothing.
I feel like I'm a second-class citizen.
Give us a safe, secure environment that they promised us when we signed our tenancy agreements.
Now, as we said, Compass declined to be interviewed, citing privacy reasons, but it did give Checkpoint some written answers. It says many of its tenants are drawn from the high needs segment of the social housing register and are supported by a range of social agencies. Compass says it provides referrals to other support services and works closely with the police to help tenants mediate and resolve conflicts. Compass says tenant safety is its #1 priority, and it takes all reports of antisocial behaviour extremely seriously. However, it doesn't have the power or the authority to investigate alleged criminal activity, and therefore it encourages tenants to direct those concerns to police. Where antisocial behaviour is substantiated and it's a breach of the tenant's lease, Compass says it takes action to resolve the issue, which in severe cases can mean eviction. But it says those processes can take some time. And it says some of the problems raised by the tenants happened more than 12 months ago. Specifically, Compass says it's been made aware of alleged sexual harassment and is taking appropriate action under the Residential Tenancies Act to resolve the matter. Those allegations have also been referred to the police, but Compass would not specify when that had happened.